Hello and welcome to the Relevate Community Knowledge Transfer Session. So here we go. Now, I touched on this a little bit last week, and I'm going to delve a lot further into it. The concept of a second brain. We're flooded with information. We've got so much going on that it's really, really hard to keep track of it all. And I find myself, and I've kind of obsessed over this in the last little week since, I guess, rediscovering this, where I would receive or I would make notes sometimes on, Google Keep, on Samsung Notes, on scribbles of paper. I was trying like OneNote for a while. I was trying Notion for a while. I was trying all sorts of random stuff like little notepads just or text files on the laptop. But this has sort of changed the game. And I think let me just get this into presentation mode, bring back the Zoom, share my screen. All right. So neural networks and personal knowledge management. So you've got knowledge management in a company, which is generally, like your SOPs and things like that. But sometimes you need something just for yourself. And, you don't really need to know everything. Like there is so much going on, and most of the memory storage that you've got in your own head is chemical signals. So it can't really truly be relied upon because sometimes your memories are formed based on the strength of the emotion that came with it at that time. So if there was a lot of fear, if there was a lot of anger, if there was a lot of something traumatic at the time, it will really anchor in your mind as being quite exact. Whereas other things might drift and change over time. And you can see our esteemed colleague here, Mr. Einstein, said that you don't have to know anything, you just got to know the location of the library. So taking that thought, a lot of times we see things structured like this in what's called a taxonomy. So if you look into your file explorer on your computer, you'll notice that there's a folder and a subfolder and then a sub-subfolder and then a sub-sub-subfolder, and it just keeps going on like that. And sometimes that can work. That can be quite good if the topics make sense, or if there's enough things to really sort of anchor it to that topic, or if it's a well-developed thought or idea, or if you're structured enough to have a plan or a system. But not everybody is. And sometimes if you really want to get something done or out of the brain quickly and just notate it down, it's going to be much more effective if it's stored in a way that the brain can actually work. And quite often people run to this. They run to a mind map. And it is a little bit more, branching, which really, if you restructure it, it is a taxonomy like what we saw back here. The difference is it feels a little bit more all over the place. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it's there. But that's exactly how the brain works. And it kind of, you see those main topics are not always as common sense as they should be. There might be, things that scared me might be one branch, or things that made me angry might be another branch, because the emotive responses are what drives those chemicals, which is what drives those memories. But neural networks are really complex things. Sometimes the emotional state can be a layer, but then you've got a hidden layer or a sub-layer or a sub-sub-sub-layer, and all of these connections are wild and crazy. And right now, you're looking at a diagram that's relatively complex, but it's still only two-dimensional. Here, our brain is much more multi-dimensional, and so are our thoughts. And the speed at which we think is much faster than we can type or write. So you don't want to write that one document and then you always need to allow your brain to wander. If you sit down in silence and you think for a while, it goes crazy. The amount of activity in your brain is all over the shop. So how do we write an effective note? Well, there's a few basic principles that we can follow. First of all, less is more. So simple notes, because you can't write as fast as you can think. You kind of really don't need to completely replace or completely capture the entire thought. They just need to summarize the thought, like dot points, something that kind of triggers the longer version of that one statement. And those notes are really relevant just to you, the individual. The other thing is ugly is effective. Right? Have a look at these notes. I know that you can't really understand what it is, but these were written by not Michelangelo. Who's the other guy?
Da Vinci?
Da Vinci. Yeah, Leonardo da Vinci. So he's been a famous character throughout history. Many of his notes are handwritten scribbles, journals, drawings, diagrams, things like that. And some of them are very much shorthand. They're not perfect. The language isn't well formatted. There's not a lot of crossings out and rewritings and different treatises and things like that. And beauty is a distraction. So when you looked at this, did you look at the horse first, or did you see the text down the bottom? So sometimes people spend a lot of time making it pretty, and so much time making it pretty that they lose the intent of the purpose, which is to drive memory and productivity. So productivity is not something that is driven by making it beautiful. The thing that then becomes creative is the beautifying of it, not the actual information and the connections or the new connections and pathways that you're making between those pieces of information. So I would encourage you to research and look up the use of a Zettelkasten. Now, I'm gonna explain it to you in a little bit, but the Zettelkasten is actually quite an old concept and very much underused. It is a German word, and it literally means a slip note. So what you're seeing there on the cards in front of you, notes that are on little slips. And on each of these little cards is a numbering system or a code, which then links it to another slip of paper. Now, this is the old version, and there are newer versions of it, but I'll tell you why it's important. This is the inventor of the Zettelkasten system. He was one of the most productive academics in German sociology, writing 70 books and more than 400 scholarly articles. That's a lot, even for, someone who's internet connected today with, AI tools and stuff, probably can't put out something as powerful as that, even though this guy was writing back in the 70s. So he's absolutely phenomenally productive and still wasn't even using the modern technology that we have today. So this looks kind of familiar, right? It's kind of like the mind map that we saw earlier. This is what's called a map of content. So it's all these little ideas, and this is sort of a more of an advanced concept of the Zettelkasten. But basically, you've got your ideas, your sub-ideas, your sub-sub-sub-ideas, but then all of that might link to an overall topic. So say, for example, with Orson's example of being YouTube. So YouTube might be the major topic. Then the subtopic might be editing. And then the subtopic to that might be editing captions. And so you might have a document that goes into a lot of detail about editing captions. And then that might roll up to a note about editing in general, and that might roll up to the whole map of content around YouTube. So then you can follow those pathways as you wish, and one thing can lead to another. And there's a lot of interlinking. So this is actually quite a simplistic diagram, but ideally your brain kind of is a little bit more like this. And in fact, this is my Zettelkasten diagram after about 3 days of using it. So you can see there's a lot of notes. I kind of went a little bit wild, but there's a lot of links to notes. So each note should be actually or thought or idea or topic should be quite small. And I'll show you my live one currently, and you can see how it's changed. But the idea is that each idea links to another idea. So it's okay to have 3 to 5 words in each note. So I might say, Kim Willis is in Cambodia and we met in Vietnam. So now I've created links for Vietnam, for Kim Willis, and for Cambodia. So now if I want to go and click a button and see that anybody else that's connected to that Vietnam that I met there at that time or at any time, then I can click that and then follow those links out to all of the people that met me there. Or I can see Kim and see anybody else that I've mentioned. Or I can say, Kim is related to the Relevate community, who's then related to Ross, who's then invited Sally. So I can go from step to step to step to step. And it's much more effective to be able to rediscover information than if you were to simply look through a folder taxonomy of documents. So there are a few methods. There is a few books out there with different methodologies, one of which is very high level. It's pretty obvious, really. Capture, organize, distill, express. So capture is, you might be collecting it on a voice note on your phone. You might be collecting it on a scribble somewhere that you wrote down. And this is personal knowledge management. There's no magic bullet to this, but this concept, if you can grasp it well, I do believe it will transform everything that you do. I've found myself writing about 4 times more. I've been able to pump out some blogs that I've never really had time to do previously. I've got other bits of ideas that have come to me. I've got linkages. I found it really, really valuable for networking because those linkages is this person talked about that person. That person is good to know because of this. And then if I want, I can store, how to introduce this person in their words. And so I can go back quickly, cut paste that into an email. Hey, you should meet this person because da 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 da. And that just saves me hours and hours. And it makes you more of an effective connector. But, capturing is one part, organizing is the next part. And I don't think you should really work very hard on organizing at all, particularly if you're going to do it the way I showed you. In fact, the messier you are, the better. The simpler you are, the better. 1, it means you'll do it. 2, it means that you'll use the linking method as you go and let your mind wander absolutely wherever you want it to go. And then you'll still be able to work back and improve that idea later. To distill is that going back and improving that idea later. And then to express it is building those maps of content to go, here's 5 disparate ideas, but here's what connects them all and links off to those disparate ideas. All right. The next is the para method, which kind of sits within the organize method. So projects, areas, resources, and archives. So if you do want to use that folder taxonomy, projects are all the short-term things that have a life cycle. Areas are the things of your life that you need to just maintain. What's your driver's license, expiry date? What's your insurance document? They're just things that sort of are in the background. And, often they're refreshing, they're renewing. It's something you need to know. Whereas a project has a finite life cycle. I'm going to build a website. I need to know all of these things about that person. Or maybe the project is a personal one. It's got nothing to do with, maybe you want to go and make a pool in the backyard or something. Resources are just like books and things that you've read. And then, of course, when it's no longer useful, archive it. And really simple is you really just need to capture, consider, and then collate. It doesn't need to be too perfect. Now, I like to think of everything as a pipeline. This is my general concept, is that, this is a sales pipeline. This is an innovation pipeline. This is a HR pipeline. And basically your ideas and the information that you store is a pipeline. You're going to quickly grab it. Then you're going to kind of review it and organize it. Then you're going to extract insights. And then at some point, you're going to reference and use it. So there's another pipeline just to demonstrate that if you think of everything as a pipeline, you can massively scale it. All right. Now, I know this is a lot of text, so I'm briefly going to give you the highlights. But basically, Henry Ford was accused of being an ignorant pacifist. They took him to court. And in order to, they were asking him all these questions like, how many soldiers did the British send over to America in the rebellion of 1776? And he's like, I don't know. I don't care. And the way he proved that this lawyer was ignorant and an idiot is basically said, I've got a button on my desk and I can call up a specialist anytime I like, and they can tell me the information. I'm not ignorant because I don't have to store that information. I know that I can get it if I need it. And that springs back to why you need the second brain, why you need, like what Mr. Einstein was saying, is that you need to have that ability to know where the library is, not necessarily to know everything. So in summary, less is more. Sometimes your notes should surprise you that there's the more insights and information and connections that you realized. The trends will reveal themselves. And if you just start, the things will come to you. Don't have to chase perfection. Less is more. A 3 to 5 word note is totally fine. A 1 word note is totally fine. Don't think about structure. It will come itself. So once you understand the ability of this note-taking concept, where are we at? Still seeing the screen there? That's the community agenda. Yep. Then you'll be able to see patterns. So this is my note-taking application today. This is a platform called Obsidian, but whether you decide to use I don't know, there's 50 others. There's Notion, OneNote. They all have a different idea. I like this one because it uses this graph view. But you can see all these little connections as I hover over. You can see that things are connected to other things. There's Kim's connected to a number of contacts. There's Luke Irwin. There's Counterparts, which is another group. Now, if you zoom right in, you can start to see some of the names and things that are starting to come together. And this doesn't mean a lot to many people, but if you start to have a look at through some of these notes, write a book, Counterparts, you see there's all these little links. Let's go to, where was it before? Let's go to Ross. I took a note a second ago, and again, it's not perfect, but member of Relevate community, platform called Bank, running some events, introduced to Steve, Safeguard, Malcolm, via Be Connected, invited Sally. So as you type, you go to lives in double open bracket, Sydney. Now it's linked. So now I can go and look up Sydney and then see everybody else that's backlinked through Sydney. Or now that I've met with Sally, so contacted Ross in marketing, helps people get content, monetizing, need to introduce you to Tracy Tulloch. Right. And then I can click in and go find out about Tracy, or I can click in and go find out about marketing, or I can go, maybe there's some other topics under marketing that I could add in there to say that, marketing, here are the different types of marketing, YouTube, LinkedIn, or maybe social media as a subtopic. And then under social media might be LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And all of those networks and connections over time will link better, and you'll build stronger connections, not only in your own mind, but in your note-taking system. And the value of that is now it's out of your head. You don't go through these circular thoughts. You don't have to keep it weighing on your mind. You can let it go, put it out into digital space, and sleep like a baby. So that's it. That is giving yourself a second brain. I hope you liked it. Do you have any questions?
I'm just trying to find the name of it. Obsidian, right, got it.
Yes, yeah.
I got a couple, Avon.
You go.
Okay.
Mate, I think I heard you correctly. Does it listen to you while you're recording just now and populate automatically as well as you manually entering, or do you manually enter everything?
No, I do manually enter it, but I do record as well. And I'll show you exactly how I do that, because I'll show you something that I did on some blogs. So I did this tonight in about 5 minutes. So I went to OneNote, because this is a concept, not any one magical application. So I'm not here to sell a software, I'm here to sell an idea. So this is OneNote, and you could use literally anything, but the reason why I'm using this is because I've got this dictate button up here. And so I just sit here, bring in my little microphone here, go add page, and I just spoke to the computer for about 5 minutes, and I put this together. And then I went copy, and then I went to ChatGPT, and let me just make sure I am not compromising anybody's information. And I will go back to here. Yep, so here we go. Share screen again. Zoom. Share. There we go. Okay, so I sort of wrote something about, it's challenging to get a face-to-face networking event, and that was what it was in the text. So I pasted in here. So I said to ChatGPT, create a blog post with this text, try to retain the song lyric references. So I pasted in, and I used the song lyrics just as a bit of a joke. So it's my words, and all it's done is slightly reorganize and add grammar. So it's not as though ChatGPT has come up with it. And then I did reread it and went, is this something I would write? And it does write better than me. And I do have to change things, but at least it's still me, still Dre. So now that I've done this, yes, I use song lyrics hidden in conversation and see who notices. So then that I put into the Obsidian. But, you could do that for a snippet of text. You don't have to run it through GPT. I did that and then put it on Medium and then posted that through to LinkedIn, and I'm just playing around.
So why did you put it in Obsidian, Avon?
Well, that was just a word vomit. Blah. Why did I put it in Obsidian? As those ideas form, remember you were saying that I go back to this information later and review. This is that distillation is now one day I could turn that into a book, or I could have it contribute to a larger body of work or something like that. Or maybe I can extract some ideas from it. Or maybe I could say, here's a blog I did. And so you can connect ideas in that way. You probably don't have to put it in Obsidian, but maybe if you wanted to use the taxonomy, which is more of that proven file storage. Anyway.
And that's what I was saying last week. That's exactly how I did 2 grant applications in a week. Was exactly that. Wrote my ideas, did exactly what you did with ChatGPT, reread it, tweaked it a bit, and what come back, and you asked to expand it to get the word count up, and it's like as if I wrote it because it used my initial information. It was brilliant.
Anybody else? I know that Orson's a big user of AI.
Notion, a big AI in Notion. I was going to say I really like Obsidian, and I wish that I had the space to use it. The only reason I don't is because I've got specific collaboration needs, and that's why I use Notion. But the like I know Obsidian also has collaboration abilities, but the biggest time waster in Notion is file organization and management, putting the notes in the correct spots.
So you probably need both still, right? You still need your filing cabinet of information. That's your final polished stuff. If you just want to let your mind run at 1,000,000 miles an hour and literally just it's not even enough to show anybody else. It should not make sense to anybody else. It should literally only make sense to you. And then from that, you turn it into bigger content that can go in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So, Avon, one more. I got a couple more quickly. That sidebar that you had on the left there.
Yep.
Is that information inside of a folder that wouldn't be observable from the brain? Could you just scroll into the brain and just find something that would always be present on the taskbar there? Or is that taskbar hidden from the brain somehow?
The folders just group it on, they're all individual notes. So that brain map thing ignores the folder structure. You can use hashtags to group IDs.
So you'd be able to find all that.
Yeah, I just push the folders in as an additional layer, but you don't have to do that.
Nice.
And you just use Control F. Go, Paul.
Yeah, sure. Just following on, I think, from Kane's query. So you've done that one. Now, tomorrow you'll perhaps do another one, and you've been doing others. And some of those will be interconnected with other parts that you will have previously done. How do you file and store them, and how do you know which one to go back to? Are you giving them all some sort of file descriptor?
So the blog is really only 1% of the conversation here. The idea is just to connect thoughts. Like whilst you're all giving your 40-second thing, you saw some of the notes, which was, Ross introduced Sally. Sally works here, does this, blah, blah, blah. So I can just go back there and get enough to refresh my memory. So it's just understanding the linkages, and that's it. The fact that the blog is in there is just an added layer of something that is probably more of that long-term store file taxonomy, but that comes from linking 100 ideas that surface level, if that makes sense.
So tomorrow, will you start a new one, or will you just keep adding to the one you've shown?
I see what you're saying. So you can create a daily journal note, or you can just create a random idea. So if I, like South Australia is not there. So knowing that Sally is from South Australia, I can create a page on South Australia, and then everybody else I meet from South Australia, I can link back to that. And then when I want to go back in future, I go, who do I know in South Australia? Click and I'll see 50 or 100 links. And then I can drill down into that person and then find out more about them and what conversation I had. So you can wildly create. You can create a day note, which is just dates automatically for the day, in which case that journal, you can make a to-do list and all that sort of thing. There are 50 different apps that do this sort of thing. So it's not about the app, it's more about the concept. But I can show anyone in more detail if you like.
So can you feed a database into it?
I would say that this is really just your wild and crazy thoughts. And then once you've got enough pattern starting to form, that's when you would create a database. No, I don't think you would so I still yes, I know I'm the CRM guy, right? So CRM is more your structured database, and that is a shareable thing. This is word vomit that can then be shaped and organized. And like I said, the less perfect it is, the better it is. So don't try to make it into something beautiful. Just make the wild, crazy connections that happen in your head, but do them as fast as you think them. And then once you start to identify some trends, now you can create something structured.
So just to expand onto that, like, I've got 4,000 real estate people on my Facebook profile. If there was a way that I could feed them into that and put them into locations, that would be advantageous for when I want to build a database.
Don't recreate the wheel. If they're already linked and on your Facebook, they're already linked and on your Facebook. If you've met them, you've had a conversation with them, and you need something to just jot down some ideas, then I would consider putting it in there, but I wouldn't consider, extracting a database and uploading it. That sort of defeats the purpose, because you can't then create those links. It's more as your brain works, not recreating a CRM or something like that.
Avon, just a point there, or an interest. When I was working on a contract with a construction company over in New Zealand to get a CRM, they wanted a CRM, and what they wanted to know was which project manager or architect, whatever, what projects did they work on and in what year, and a raft of different things. There's a CRM over there called BCI, which is related to the construction industry, and it actually was able to do that. So they were able to say who was an electrician that worked on projects of this size and they worked for us on a project, and it was really amazing. I lost the contract to that company because of that 3D look. That was what they were looking for. And I reckon it'd be a really powerful thing to build into more CRMs.
If you think, yes, I was about to say that what I've shown you is personal knowledge management, not corporate knowledge management. However, I do see the value, because the reason why I love this is when I was in the Army, I used to be an intelligence analyst, and you've got a platform called I2 Analyst Notebook, and you can do these very complex situational maps, and usually it's all retrospective and historical, and you are linking, here's this person, they met with that person, they sent an email on this date, there was a phone call, here's a bit of evidence or something, and you can start to tie things together. This platform was used to bring down Steve Vizart in the Telstra insider trading incident. Anyway, it's been solved. These sorts of platforms have been used to solve numerous crimes. They are investigation platforms. This is kind of like a concept of that. It doesn't fully replace it. But I've always thought that having that interlinking ability on a CRM and being able to see it in that view would be amazing. It's just not something that's commercially available for the general public without a very, very, very niche tool.
Yeah, by the way, I should correct that. I didn't lose the contract too, because I actually, once I established that Nimble wasn't suitable for it, they engaged me to help them figure out what they needed and what CRMs to look at. And that's why they chose it, was particularly for that 3D look at the people involved in a project.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, like I mentioned, this is more of a wild and crazy, wild west of your thoughts, not a corporate structured database, which is what it has to be in an organization when it's shared with others. But yes. All right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording now because we are at time. So bear with me 1 second.
It's going to share one little life hack idea, because all the database points are double bracketed, right? So if you put 2 double brackets on a keyword, it'll that's how it creates the neural network links. Correct. So you could probably, if you did have an article you wanted to run through and you didn't want to have to go through and double bracket all the items, you could probably run it through ChatGPT and just go, can you put a double bracket between all words under these key categories? And then when you paste it in, if it's using a similar formula like a lot of these other ones, it should just automatically turn them into items.
Yeah, it basically creates a wiki.
Yeah.
It's like regenerating. You don't want to regenerate Wikipedia, but yes, you could basically create your own Wikipedia, which is what I know is WIKI. Yeah, well done.